First, Pickle, let's get back to AT&T Stadium. Let's talk about what happened there at AT&T Stadium. And before we get to everything and all the games individually, I think that it is easy to look at the 4 state championship games we just had and kind of think, well, that was anticlimactic. Because, look, the 4 games were decided by an average of 33 points, okay? They were all pretty, and even some of the games were not, the scores were not as like indicative of how much domination there was.
Oh, yeah.
And we can talk about why that is. We've got a whole offseason to talk about why that is. But I think one thing to remember, guys, is we have to think about this collectively. We have to think about all 12 of the state championship games.
Which were
and you've
bangers.
got to remember that both the 2A games, for different reasons. Windthorst's crazy upset win over Mart, and then I got a lot of value watching Shiner and Post because I enjoyed watching the show that Shiner put on. And then both 3A games, I don't think I need to tell you, were bangers, right? Canadians win over Franklin, and then Jim Neds win over Hallettsville. I thought the Carthage game over with Gilmer was interesting, if only to see the machine work.
Right. Yeah, it was a blowout, but that one was still fun to watch.
It was surgical.
Because it was like this, you're watching just like a masterpiece down on the field.
That's what it was. Then Argyle Lindale, it was okay. It was
probably the dud of the weekend.
Argyle pulled away and then kind of held them at arm's length. When you take into account all 12 of the state championship games, I think it was a relatively average, or maybe slightly below average as far as game quality is concerned. I think that because we got all the bangers out of the way in December, and it's now been a month, and we're not
specifically that second day.
Yeah, we haven't thought about it. Because of that, we're just kind of like, I think we forget that we have to think of them collectively. So yes, I don't disagree with you. If you're thinking, man, these 5A and 6A games kind of duds, I don't disagree with you. But I do think that it's interesting that we got to think about it collectively. So let's go through them. We'll go in chronological order. We'll start 5A Division 2. Aledo, with their 10th state championship, they beat Crosby 56-21. Give Crosby a lot of credit. They came out from the jump, and I thought they had a pretty good game plan from the beginning of getting their guys out in space, and it worked. It worked for the first couple drives. They took a 14-7 lead.
Yeah.
Okay? But I'll also be honest, and I'm watching this game, and I'm looking at the way Crosby's moving down the field, and I'm watching Aledo do work, and I'm going, this is not sustainable for Crosby.
No.
This is not. Because what we had kind of talked about, Pickle, the big advantage that Aledo was going to have in this game was up front.
Yep.
And for Aledo, they can make some defensive adjustments to get Crosby out of rhythm, and they ended up coming up with a couple of key turnovers that really changed the tide of the game. They did that. There wasn't. I just think Aledo outmanned Crosby up front.
Right.
And at that point, they let DeMarco Roberts run wild, and it was kind of over from there.
Yeah, this one had big Carthage Gilmer vibes to it because it was interesting. Like we got at least like a solid quarter of football, and that the underdog kind of takes the lead, and you're going, ooh, can we do this? And then I think you really got to see in this one how disciplined Aledo is.
Absolutely.
And especially their offense gets a lot of, push with DeMarco Roberts doing what he did, but I feel like on the defensive side of the ball, they knew that they had 2 threats that they had to take away on that Crosby team, and they took them away from the get-go.
100% right. And I think that was really – it was very impressive to watch them work, and the defense really to I think, get used to and become acclimated to what Crosby wanted to do. And then once they did that, they were able to really lock down on him, and then the offense continued to do what they did, and they ran away with it. They get their record 10th state championship, Aledo, 56-21 winners in the 5A Division II title game over Crosby. So now let's go to the nightcap. Now, and one thing before we leave that.
Okay.
I think going into the weekend, we looked at Aledo Crosby and we were like, maybe it might be a blowout. Might be. I thought if you were talking about a game with a clear favorite, I think this was the game with the clear favorite. So I'm not disappointed in this game, really. I don't think that I would categorize myself as disappointed.
No.
I think that this was about what we thought it was, and then we moved on to the other 3 games, which I think I would categorize as maybe I'm a little bit disappointed that these games didn't live up to what we thought they would.
Specifically this next one.
So 5A Division 1, Denton Ryan beats Cedar Park 59-14. And
this was disappointing for me.
To me, there were a couple of ways this game could have gone. And fundamentally both of the questions got answered in the absolute best possible way for Denton Ryan, which was A, could they slow down and rattle, pressure, make uncomfortable Ryder Hernandez with their front 4 and get pressure and come up with big plays defensively? Check. They absolutely did. Their defense really stymied Cedar Park, a team that, by the way, had really been rolling offensively. We talk a lot about the defense. We'll talk about them in a second. But that was, to me, an extremely impressive performance defensively. This is a Cedar Park team that the lowest amount of points that they had scored in a game, you got to go all the way back to their opener when they scored 21 points. You know what I mean? And that was against 6A Vandegrift.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This was a very impressive defensive performance from Denton Ryan, and I don't want to put that aside. But it's the other side that, to me, was a little bit surprising, and if you're looking for a competitive game, you could argue was disappointing, which was Denton Ryan's offense got cooking. And in a lot of ways, they got the running game going early. Kiori Hicks got going early. Seth Hennigan made some big-time throws. And they got and in the end, the receiver core for Denton Ryan was, in my opinion, the difference.
They exposed the defensive backs there. Were you a little confused when they were double-teaming Billy Bowman and leaving Jatavian Sanders just wide open?
Well, it wasn't wide open. They were singling him up. They were putting bracket coverage on Billy Bowman, and I think it's because he's their fastest receiver.
Right.
True.
Yeah.
And they were thinking, we got to keep everybody in front of us. He's the guy who's going to get behind us. We'll take our chances one-on-one with Jatavian Sanders.
Yeah.
It didn't end up mattering because they got a big game from basically the rest of the receiver core. That's the difference, is the depth of receiving options that they have was so impressive. And so as a result, Denton Ryan runs away with it. And 59-14, and I'll be honest, it was about that close. Especially there in that second half, where Denton Ryan, it looked like they were a runaway freight train. They looked the part of the best team in 5A Division 1. They go wire to wire at number 1 in 5A Division 1. And I would say I still think Carthage is pound for pound the best team in the state.
I agree.
I think Denton Ryan's put themselves in the conversation that we need to talk about it. I thought what they did last week, or this past week against Cedar Park, was extremely impressive. And if you want to say that Denton Ryan is clearly the best team in 5A Division 1, I will not argue with that.
No, not at all.
You go back. I think that Aledo, obviously they won their title. I would still like to see Aledo Ennis, but Aledo wins the title. They beat the teams in front of them. They don't need to apologize for that. For Denton Ryan to come through the toughest region, to play some of the toughest teams, and to get through to a state championship and win it in emphatic fashion, I think they've vaulted themselves into the conversation of best pound-for-pound team in Texas.
I think, too, and Steph and I kind of talked about this on the instant reaction, but it was like you have seen Denton Ryan and specifically this group of seniors maybe be a little snake bitten. And to me, the performance that they had at AT&T on Friday night was them going out there and saying, we are not letting this happen again. I think determination.
I think you're right. I think there was a certain level of catharsis there for Denton Ryan.
Like they were going to just roll no matter what.
Of 2016, they get beat by Highland Park. 2017 they get beat by Highland Park. 2018 they get beat by Highland Park. 2019 I don't think they get to a title game. I don't think they play particularly well against Shadow Creek.
But they had the chance, right at the end.
This felt like a team that was fully engaged from the word go. And a lot of credit to Dave Hennigan and that coaching staff for having them prepared to go out there and really dominate. In the end, I think that, and this is not a knock on Cedar Park. I don't mean it as a knock on Cedar Park. Cedar Park is a team of worker bees. Bunch of guys, really good football players, all do their jobs.
Yep.
Denton Ryan's team is superstars.
Yes.
And in the end, I think the superstars won out. So then we moved to Saturday. And in the 6A Division II state championship game, Katy exacts a little bit of revenge if you care about what happened in 2014. They exact a little bit of revenge, and they beat Cedar Hill 51-14. And
this one was a bruiser.
This game was not as close as that. I mean, this game was 34-0 before.
Yeah.
I mean, this game was 34-0 before Cedar Hill scored. I mean, every score in this game for Cedar Hill was cosmetic.
Yep.
I mean, this was Katy's one of the most complete teams I've seen all year. I mean, that is a complete team. Everything they do really well. That offensive line, of course, is grinding it out. The running game was exceptional with Seth Davis and Jalen Davis, both over 100 yards. They were spectacular. They did not ask Caleb Koger to do a ton, but again,
he does his job well.
and a ton of credit goes to the Katy offensive game planning. Gary Joseph and that staff, that game planning, because they knew that Cedar Hill was going to pin their ears back and come after them. They knew that it's an ultra-aggressive defensive line for Cedar Hill, and they used it against them. And they were in that first half, and when they built up this 24-0 lead, which in the end was more than enough, they were killing them with draws, with screens, with play action, all of these things.
The play action is gorgeous.
And they were just crushing them with those kind of misdirection plays is the wrong way to put it, but the plays where they're using your aggressiveness against you. Very impressive. And then there's the defense. I mean, look, here is the best compliment I can pay to the Katy defense. They made Caden Salter look ordinary. They made him look ordinary.
And no,
a lot of this
normal people don't do that.
A lot of this comes down to whether or not Cedar Hill is going to be able to find another weapon besides Caden Salter. They were not able to run the ball effectively or efficiently throughout the course of the game. The Katy defense was swarming. They were making Caden Salter very uncomfortable the whole game and not letting him – they were containing him. They were not letting him tuck and run and break those 30-yard runs that we're so used to seeing him do. I mean, the guy only had 46 yards rushing. I mean, that's for him, that might be a season low. And so incredibly – complete performance from Katy.
And I will say the lack of Cedar Hill's run game due to injuries definitely played a slight factor in it, but it takes absolutely nothing away. I feel like when we watched Carthage, we kept saying, just a complete well-oiled machine, and that's what Katy looked like. I mean, you can't watch that football team play and I mean, the only thing you're going to find wrong is maybe the most nitpicky of items, because other than that, it's every single phase of the ball is so well oiled.
How about this for complete? This is just one thing that I found in the box score that I didn't notice until now. Third downs. Katy goes 7 of 12. Cedar Hill goes 2 of 10. That's the whole dang story. And that's a level. That is a level of complete performance there that we've come to expect from Gary Joseph and company, and that is a remarkable win for Katy. And then we have the nightcap as Austin Westlake beats South Lake Carroll 52-34, and this game was not that close. This game was 52-21 with 5 minutes left in the game.
The first half was a lot of fun.
They polished this thing up at the end, but this was Westlake establishing their dominance early.
In the third quarter, I would say.
Yeah, especially that third quarter.
When they came out in the third quarter, there was no
we got a great
around.
half. We got a great first half. And you saw for both of these teams why they were here. For both these teams. I thought Carroll First drive, magnificent.
Mm-hmm.
Well scripted. They go out there. They get Quinn Ewers comfortable. He has time to throw. They end up punching it in with Owen Allen on a touchdown run. They go up 7-0. First play, Zane Myers breaks a 75-yard touchdown run, and that whole drive evaporates.
Mm-hmm.
And you start to see, you're like, uh-oh. Is Southlake going to be able to, is Carroll going to be able to stop Westlake?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer ended up being no. They go back and forth. It ends up being 28-21 at halftime. A crucial last-minute drive. A final drive for Westlake of the first half. They go 10 plays, 75 yards, eat up 5:32, cash in on Kate Klubnik's 1-yard touchdown to go up 28-21, and they get the ball to start the second half.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, you're like, all right, you're now giving Tony Salazar a lead, the defensive coordinator for Westlake, a lead and a whole halftime to figure things out defensively. And they did. They absolutely stymied Quinn Ewers and company after that. Carroll was never able to run the ball. Carroll ended up running the ball for 50 yards in the game. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
It was all Quinn Ewers. And Quinn Ewers, I think, if that's the first time you're seeing the Southlake Carroll quarterback, he's worthy of the hype. That's a really good quarterback. I think that Westlake's defense made adjustments, made him uncomfortable, came up with big plays that ended up sealing the deal.
Those couple of interceptions in the second half made the difference for them to tear away. Yeah,
I thought Cade Klubnik was just spectacular in this game.
Laser
18
sharp.
of 20 for 220. And then he runs for another 2 touchdowns, 111 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was spectacular. They were able to run the ball with Zane Miners. This was a really impressive performance from Westlake. And you know, look, I mean, Westlake, for all we talk about their defense, and their defense, again, did hold things up. Craig's like, where are you? Calling in a second. For as much as we talk about that defense, let's not forget that this offense was really good all year long. They end up putting up 515 yards total offense and coming up with those big plays defensively to pull away. Westlake goes back-to-back D2 last year, D1 this year. So there it is. That closed out the 2020 Texas high school football season in 2021. And yeah, we got our 12 state champions. So there they go. That's what we'll talk about for the rest of the offseason. And now we've just got to get through the shortest offseason of all time. So how about that?
Easy peasy.